everybody. This is also in the description and we bring it up several times throughout the episode, but just as a fair warning, today we are talking at length about the sexual abuse of a minor. We are discussing the Mary Kay Letourneau case. So if that is something that you just are not interested in hearing about, we totally understand. We'll be continuing to talk about media related to this case next week, so we'll be excited to have you back in a couple of weeks for a less triggering topic. But for those of you who are sticking around, I don't even know if I can say enjoy, because whew, this is a doozy.
Do you do yoga every day?
Not every day. I try to go between 3 and 4 times a week, and sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less. I only went twice last week. And then some weeks, I go every day. There's been weeks where I've gone multiple times in a single day because I'll do a Pilates class and then a slower yin class afterwards because that feels really good. So it just depends on the week and what my vibe is. But I think last year I went to 120 something classes, and this year I'm on track to go to closer to 150.
Yeah, when I was doing the maximum level of fighting, I would sometimes do 3 classes in a row. So I would be doing 3 hours of fighting, and at my max, I was going 5, if not 6 days a week for at least 1, usually 2 to 3 classes a day.
Yeah, if it was uptown, I probably would go more often, but it is I have to be on the train for 30 minutes to go to the yoga studio that I like. And so there's just some days where I'm like, fuck, I want to go to yoga, but I literally don't want to be on the train for 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back. And so if it was closer, I would go more often. But yeah, I mean, I do really try to make an effort to go as much as possible because I just feel better. I wasn't going to go on Friday, and then it got to the point that was 45 minutes before the class I was going to go to, and I was like, okay, fuck it, let's go. And so I went, and I did. I felt so much better. And I'm sad that I missed the class that I had this morning, but I was just locked into some work, and then I looked at my clock and I was like, damn it, I can't even make it down there now.
I've never done a gym before where you have to sign up for the classes ahead of time, and I kind of like it. Basically, I just schedule the class the day before. So, I finished my class today, and I was like, oh, I guess I could go tomorrow. Booked it for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's been nice because then I feel committed to it because I will not lose my $10.
I think I've had to late cancel 3 times. And one of the times it was because I woke up extremely, extremely sick. And then the other 2 times it was what happened today where I was like, oh shit, I'm not going to make it down there in time.
Speaking of things that are extremely, extremely sick, hello and welcome to Informed Attraction, a podcast hosted by one fake legal system and one horror of the patriarchy, a podcast about how life is a joke, but I am not laughing.
Oh, which one of us do I think is a horror of the patriarchy? And which one of us do I think is a fake legal system? I think I might be a horror. Well, you might be a horror to the patriarchy.
I am.
I think I'm a horror of the patriarchy, and then I think you are probably a fake legal system.
I am a fake legal system because I play by my own rules.
Hi, Butter. Butter said, yeah, fuck the patriarchy. Down with capitalism. Laws are, whatever that Brennan Lee Mulligan monologue is where he's like, laws are made to oppress the lower class and fuck the police, that he does as the little gnome man from one of the seasons of Fantasy High.
So this week is going to be a little bit different. One of my favorite movies of 2023, perhaps my favorite movie of 2023, was Todd Haynes' May December, which is based on the real-life media circus and case around convicted sex offender Mary Kay Letourneau. It's a gorgeous drama that we're going to talk about in more detail next week, but basically months ago I was browsing Instagram and I saw a movie clip from the movie That's My Boy with Adam Sandler and Andy Samberg, and I was like, hold on, what the fuck? Because that movie is also based on the case of Mary Kay Letourneau, but it's a goofy father-son comedy full of sex jokes. So I really want to compare and contrast both of those films next week, but I decided that for this week, I really wanted to ground us in the real life facts and events that occurred so that we have a context about how those events were interpreted for the pieces of media that were based upon them. This is a format that I've been really interested in doing maybe a little bit more of, so if you have any suggestions for movies that are about historical events or real people that you think would be interesting for us to cover in this way, feel free to send us an email at informedattraction@gmail.com.
I had to take a cleansing breath in the middle of that because I literally 15 minutes ago finished watching That's My Boy.
Well,
It's actually good that I watched it today and we're not going to talk about it until next week, because I think if I had to talk about it right now, I would just start screaming. Because you guys, we've watched some real clunkers for this podcast. We've watched some movies that I did not enjoy, that I did not have a good time watching. This is the worst one, bar frickin' none.
it is considered one of the worst movies of all time.
It is.
And it came out in 2012.
Which is so crazy. The teacher's name in that movie is Mary.
Yeah, it's very obviously meant to be her and him.
Anyway, it was so hard to watch, and hopefully by next week I will have gone to at least 3 to 4 hot yoga classes between now and then, and I'll have found some zen and some peace with what I just spent multiple hours of my life doing. More on the horrors soon. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of horrors in this episode too.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of horrors in this one, guys. Just the nature of the beast, we're going to be talking about sexual abuse, sexual violence, grooming, all things like that. I know Mackenna is usually like, if you don't like this discussion, skip to this part of the episode. You might just need to skip this one if those things are going to be rough for you. And that's okay. You can see us in the next one. Or go back in time. See us in a previous one.
Aubrey and I recently, if you want to know about Aubrey and Mackenna synergy, one of Aubrey's friends' husbands was going to listen to some of the episodes, and her friend asked us for what episodes she should make him listen to, and me and Aubrey sent the exact same episodes in the exact same order.
Yeah!
So if you are a man in your early 30s?
Early 30s.
May we recommend, what did we say? What was
Mid-30s.
your mid-30s? May we recommend Santa Claus, Food Network, and the Alpha Male series.
Yeah. With
And also Family Guy.
Yeah, and also Family Guy. They ended up listening to Alpha Males, and she said he agreed with everything we said.
Yes,
Yeah.
a podcast for boys. We're making a podcast for boys.
So I do want to ground us a little bit before I even talk about Mary Kay Letourneau in just the prevalence and legal precedent when it comes to male victims of sexual abuse. So historically, sexual abuse was thought to be and defined by being a crime that was committed solely against girls and women. This belief is still held in some parts of the world, but sexual abuse of men is now more commonly criminalized and has been subject to more discussion than in the past. We know that boys and men are far less likely to report sexual abuse than girls and women. Sexual abuse against men is still considered a taboo subject in society, and male victims tend to deny their victimization. We will probably get into that as we talk through this episode. I think the most important things that I really want our conversation the things that I want to be really clear about in this conversation is like, this case is very complex in the sense that when we think about sexual violence, we are not socially used to the idea of someone continuing a relationship with someone who has committed sexual violence against them. And that happens here, and it is, it's clunky. It's hard to talk about. So I want to be respectful to the person who was victimized, and also understand that that person might not fully consider themselves as being somebody who was fully victimized.
Yeah, I think perhaps, Aubrey, another series we could do in this vein, since you're soliciting suggestions for episodes, and I'm currently writing my email to informedattraction@gmail.com. I think this is like a very, in some ways, similar thing to Priscilla and Elvis Presley, and sort of some of the conversation around their relationship, especially when Sofia Coppola's movie Priscilla came out, of just like, reckoning with the fact that like Elvis was fully in a relationship with this girl starting when she was like 14 years old, and like that to most people would make her a victim, but obviously she stayed with him. She did eventually divorce him, but she stayed with him for a long time and sort of doesn't necessarily view herself that way in the way that she talks about Elvis. And I think we see some similar stuff here. And so like that definitely has some roots in like both genders, but I think to your point, it is often more common for men to feel that way because we are less likely. We have just like historically not considered men to be victims in the same way as women.
Yeah. And community and service providers often react differently to male victims based on their sexual orientation and the gender of their perpetrators. Something that I kept being reminded of when I was reading some of the statistics about male victims of sexual abuse is when I was in college, I was briefly a public policy intern for the National Network to End Domestic Violence. And one of the things that always really struck me was seeing descriptions from men who were seeking resources. Specifically, they wanted to like they wanted to go to domestic violence shelters, and they weren't allowed to be in them because men are typically not allowed to be in domestic violence shelters. And not all men, not all shelters, but just, broad strokesing right now. And it really was something that I found very troubling and upsetting, that people who needed help were literally being turned away because of their gender. And I do think that, like, I do not think that women who are fleeing abusive men should be then forced to be in an environment where they are cohabitating with men. Yeah. And I also think that there is like a society where anybody who needs help and services to flee domestic violence are able to have access to resources like that.
There's a really, I have to remember the name of the play. There is a play called When We Were Young and Unafraid by Sarah Treem that like I think has its issues, of course, but so what it's about is this woman Agnes who turns her bed and breakfast into like a stop along a network of like domestic violence shelters, but then obviously it's also a bed and breakfast. And so basically like this young woman who is being sheltered there accidentally meets one of the like regular guests at the Airbnb who is a man, and sort of like gets into a relationship with him. And as they are getting into a relationship, you realize that he might also be abusive. And so like that was a really kind of like, again, I think that play is a little dated and has some issues, but like I also think it was a really interesting look at like cycles of abuse and patterns. And like to your point, Aubrey, like why it might not be good for a victim to be around men at that time because of the vulnerable state that they're in. But then that does mean we need to find avenues to allow for male victims to also be taken care of.
Exactly. Like, to me, in a perfect world, there are like male domestic violence shelters that exist.
Absolutely, because I think it's
because a lot of them have to go to homeless shelters, which is not what they need either.
No, and it's predicated on this notion of like, could a woman really hurt a man? Why do you need to get out? Like that's why they don't exist.
Yeah,
is because it's like well, you're not like physically threatened by your partner in the same way that like a woman is physically threatened by her male partner. But it's like, okay, so A, gay men exist. And like two, that's not necessarily true. And like men can be like outside of just sexual violence, like men can also be physically abused by their female partners.
Yeah. That is what we are in fact talking about today. Boys and men are often afraid to report sexual abuse. They might be afraid that people will doubt their sexual orientation and label them as gay, especially if they've been abused by a man, or they might be seen as unmasculine because they were victimized in some way. Because of that reason, many statistics underestimate how many men are sexually abused because of the inability to accurately capture like how many men are being abused but then are not reporting that abuse. And similar things happen with like women who have been sexually abused, right? Like it's hard to get a clear scope of prevalence when you know that you are not capturing people who are not reporting sexual violence to entities that you would collect that information from. But we just like we being researchers and people who are doing research in that area and like general society, like there is an understanding that we know that there are a lot of men who are not being reported in common statistics about sexual abuse. Research about male victim sexual abuse really only started in the 1980s and was mainly focused on male children. Only recently have other forms of sexual violence against men been considered. It wasn't until the 2010-2012 National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey that the CDC did that they included a measure category of sexual violence called being made to penetrate, which captures instances in which victims were forced to or attempt to sexually penetrate someone, either by physical force or coercion, or when the victim was intoxicated or otherwise unable to consent. So, like, that being a category of how sexual abuse is defined, really only, like, 15 years ago, people started asking that as a question. And in that specific CDC survey, they basically found about 1 million men reported being made to penetrate in the previous 12 months, which was similar to the rates of women who reported sexual abuse in that same time period. So this notion that sexual assault and sexual abuse happens less to men than it does to women may not be true. Again, like, it's sort of hard when you're not able to capture everyone who's missing, but I just think it's really telling that in this 2010-2012 report, like, you know, this indicator of sexual violence was basically the same for men as the amount of women who reported, you know, sexual violence against them.
I know I mentioned this episode last time or not last time, but when in the episode about Nightwing, we were talking about the assault of Nightwing. But Aubrey, have you seen the Law and Order SVU episode Ridicule about the male stripper?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so can I briefly talk about
Yes.
Ridicule? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Ridicule is an episode of Law and Order SVU. It's from the 3rd season of the show. It's episode 10. And basically the episode starts and this woman is dead by what they initially think is autoerotic asphyxiation. And then Benson and Stabler are like, something is off here. Like, this does not seem like she died during autoerotic asphyxiation. Like, something feels weird here. And as they start investigating, they meet 2 of her friends. And they're like, something is weird here. And then they basically get a lead on this guy who had like threatened the woman who was dead. And when they find him, they're like, yeah, because her and her friends assaulted me at a birthday party, at a bachelorette party or a birthday party, one of the 2. And basically what you end up finding out happens is these 3 women tied him to a bed and like forced him to have sex with all of them. And they get into this whole thing in the courtroom of like, oh, so you were hard? That means you wanted it. And he's like, no, my body just reacted. I did not want to be there. I couldn't control it. One of them ends up flipping on the other one and gets convicted, but then they end up getting both of the women somehow, but like the whole thing with the autoerotic asphyxiation is the 3rd one, the one who they end up killing. Oh, they end up getting the other woman on the murder because the other one flips on, who gets convicted of the sexual assault, flips on the one who did the murder because they murdered their friend because she was going to come forward and say that they assaulted this man. And so they staged an autoerotic asphyxiation because one of the women was into autoerotic asphyxiation. And so they end up getting one of them on the sexual assault, and at the end they're going to get the other one on the murder. But yeah, but there's literally a whole thing in that too of like, this episode comes out like right after the statute that like sexual assault and rape can only happen to women. And so this would be like the first time a woman would be convicted of this in the state of New York since that statute was overturned. And so that's certainly like what this is about. And it's just interesting because that like being made to penetrate thing literally comes up in this as he's like trying to be like, I understand that I got hard, but like I did not want to be hard. I could not stop myself from being hard. And you see that in cases with female victims as well too, where they're like, you got aroused, and it's like, I didn't want to be. I can't stop what my body's doing, but I did not want to be there, and I still felt violated by it.
Well, right, and that's the whole thing of consent, right? Because our bodies react to physical touch, even if that is touch that is not necessarily desired, and like your body having a physiological response to touch does not mean that you consented to that touch.
It's so funny to me because you're like, You hear all the time about like guys will be like, yeah, man, I like the wind goes the wrong way and I get a boner. I see a particularly juicy steak and I get a boner. But then there's this like weird thing where like then they can't get to the point of believing that like someone could get hard when they don't want to in a context where someone is actively touching their penis. And it's just like, okay, so you can believe that like a cinnamon roll looking kind of good can lead to a boner, but you can't believe that a woman doing a crime could result. It's so fucking weird, man.
Well, it just goes into the, like, patriarchal idea that men just always want sex. Men are all about sex, and all sex is like pizza. Any pizza, even bad pizza's kind of good, and it's like, no.
Not when it's a child, especially thinking about that's my boy.
Yeah. So those were some of the kind of broader statistics about male victims of sexual abuse, thinking specifically about female on male sexual abuse. Also, not to be too gender essentialist, as always, you know, I'm using these terms because like the specific gender of this situation is relevant to what we're talking about. Gender is fake and sexual abuse can happen to anybody regardless of your genitals or gender expression. So, female on male sexual abuse is incredibly under-researched compared
I would also add, regardless of also your partner's genitals and gender expression, too.
Yes.
Like, not only what you're rocking, but what they're rocking, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it knows no bounds. I'm talking specifically in this context about female on male sexual abuse because we are going to be talking about media where that is the specific context in which we're talking. I'm not trying to suggest that there's only a few kinds of sexual abuse. There is, unfortunately, a very wide rainbow of sexual abuse that can occur.
A literal infinite kind, an infinite hole of sadness.
Yeah. So female on male sexual abuse is under-researched compared to other forms of sexual violence. Statistics on the prevalence of female on male sexual violence and its psychological effects are sort of inconsistent across studies. Basically, in terms of prevalence, the main stuff that I could find was a 2016 CDC study, which found that about 1 in 9, or about 10% of men, reported being made to penetrate at some point in their lives. That survey also found that male victims often report female perpetrators in instances of being made to penetrate. So of men who reported being made to penetrate, about 70% of them reported that their perpetrator was female. For sexual coercion, about 70% reported that their perpetrator was female. And for unwanted sexual contact in general, about 47% reported that their perpetrator was female. Interestingly, I went into a little bit of a rabbit hole on this that I won't spend a ton of time on, but a lot of female on male sexual abuse happens in the prison system. So about 4.4% of prison inmates and 3.1% of jail inmates report experiencing incidents of sexual victimization by another inmate or facility staff, and about 2/3 of male jail inmates who have been victimized report that their perpetrator was female. So about 64% of male jail inmates who have been victimized were victimized by a woman. And that was kind of alarming to me. And again, it's just so difficult too, because even when we talk later about Mary Kay Letourneau, a lot of this stuff is so hard for me to wrap my mind around because I'm somebody who is so against, just the system of mass incarceration. And also, some people are fucked up. And I don't know what we do with people who are fucked up in the world.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing that I'm dealing with a little bit right now because I have a friend going through a legal situation with a partner who harmed her, and I'm like someone who is so theoretically prison bad. Prison is bad. And I'm also like, I want this man as far away from my friend as humanly possible. And I don't know how to get him, we're in the system we currently live in. I don't know how to get him as far away from her as humanly possible. That is not in prison.
Male victims of sexual abuse by women often face social, political, and legal double standards. And I think today's case that we're talking about really epitomizes the social, political, and legal double standards incredibly well. So Today we're going to be talking about the case of Mary Kay Letourneau, who is a convicted sexual offender who had a long-term sexually abusive relationship with a child who she taught. This case became a tabloid and media circus because she was impregnated by this child when he was 12 years old and went to prison and then later had a second child with him and then went to prison again and then got out and married him, and they were together for like over a decade before eventually they divorced and she died. And this case is just super fucked up and incredibly compelling to read about and listen to stories of, which is why I think we've seen like now several different media depictions of this relationship. So I'm going to get into now who is the central figure of this convicted sex offender, Mary Kay Letourneau. Mary Kay Letourneau was born in 1962 to a large conservative Catholic family. She was the daughter of former Congressman John G. Schmitz, who was a Republican congressman from California and served on the California State Senate. John G. Schmitz, fun fact, was fucking evil in a way that is different from how Mary Kay Letourneau was fucking evil. John Schmitz was notable for his extremist right-wing politics and for his frequent uses of slurs against people of color, women, Jewish people, and queer people. He is considered one of the most conservative congressmen the United States has ever had.
Can I tell you something maybe bad?
Yeah.
Every time you say his name, I can't stop going, John J. Jingleheimer Schmidt. Na 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 na. That's all I am. Or John Jacob, right? It's John Jacob?
Yeah, John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt.
John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmitz. His name is my name too. Whenever we go out, all the people shout, this man is a bad man. This is all I can think about right now because my brain is broken.
So the ultra-conservative John Birch Society, of which Schmitz was the longtime leader, expelled him for how extremist his rhetoric was. His political idol was crazy. Joseph McCarthy.
That's crazy. That's literally crazy.
That's not even the craziest, because when he died, his obituary was printed in the Journal of Historical Review. Do you know what the Journal of Historical Review is, Mackenna?
I don't.
It is a long-standing Holocaust denial publication.
Oh.
And they called him a good friend of the Institute.
Oh. Well, now that's interesting. So, do you know who John Birch is? I just found out who John Birch actually was.
No.
So John Birch was a Baptist missionary and U.S. Army captain during World War II, and after the war ended, he was killed by like Chinese communist troops following a dispute like between them. And so it was founded by a guy named Robert Welch, and he picked John Birch because it like was he like views the murder of John Birch as like the opening of a global communist conspiracy. And so like John Birch like had nothing to do with the John Birch party, like John Birch organization. He had nothing to do with the John Birch Society. He was dead before it was even founded.
It's just like, who's the fucking guy who people do all the marathons for?
Pat
Tillman! Pat Tillman was against the Iraq War. Pat Tillman was against the Iraq War.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's so good. It's so good when you die and then people use your name to mythologize.
Yeah. Basically, her mom was a former chemist, and she tried to follow the political career of her husband by being a political commentator, but essentially, John Schmitz cheated on his wife and fathered 2 children with a former student of his from Santa Ana College, and it was a big controversy and basically ended his political career. He split up from his wife, but then they got back together. So that's like the context that Mary Kay Letourneau is like a child in.
I think okay, this is like 9 degrees of separation removed, but I think we've talked about this on the podcast before, but I'm going to tell the story again, and I've already told the story before. I am apologizing to every time I've ever listened to a podcast and gone, Marcus Parks, you've already told that story before. Michael Hobbs, you've already told that story before. I don't know. I don't know a single thing I've ever said on this podcast.
I got 3 stories.
I have 3 stories. I got 2 phones. Okay, I went to Kenyon College in Gambier, Ohio. If you've heard of it, it's because Alice and Janney went there, / John Green went there, / other people, / I went there. That's probably why you've heard of it, actually. And so Kenyon is a very culty little school, and professors tend to stick around for a long time. People who were professors there tend to become presidents of the school. My anthropology advisor in college was there for a very long time, and he was there through the period of when you were allowed to have sex with your students and when you were not allowed to have sex with your students. And it was in the 90s when that changed. And the president of the college, who had to be the one to like put down the, hey guys, no more having sex with your students, something bad happened and we need to stop doing that, was a man who was married to someone who he met when he was her professor and student. And Suggs was like, this is crazy that this man is having to be like, you guys can't fuck your students anymore when he is married because he had sex with a student. And recently, there was like a whole situation where a philosophy professor cheated on his wife right after she had given birth to one of their children with one of his students. And she had to be the one to fire him because she was the head of the philosophy department at the time.
Well, I wonder if that felt kind of good.
He then proceeded to continue living in her house with him. They lived together for like the rest of the school year while he figured out what he was going to do next.
Yoicks!
La 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 la.
Yeah, never ask a professor how he met his wife.
No, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Even when the story is good, it's bad, you know?
One thing about professors is they sure hate when you tell them not to have sex with their students. Not even that they can't have sex with students in general, specifically their own students.
Yeah. They're like, what do you mean?
They're like, you're trying to take away my rights.
And it's like, yeah, you're right to have sex with a 19-year-old, you freak.
Because that's the thing. Like, you know what? If a fucking geology professor wants to have sex with a political science undergrad, those are 2 consenting adults. I don't give a fuck. But when the chair of your dissertation is fucking you, I think that's bad. I'm gonna be 10 toes down, and I'm gonna say that I think that's bad, and that we shouldn't let that happen.
I agree.
If somebody who's deciding whether you get your PhD or not is having sex with you, I don't think they can make that decision.
I think someone that is determining a grade for you in an undergrad class you shouldn't be having sex with. I think someone who is just like someone who you met through the context of them proffering knowledge to you in a classroom setting when you are 19 years old and they are 40 is not someone who's you should be boinking. It's fine.
Other tragedies around Mary Kay Letourneau are in 1973, one of her brothers drowned in the family pool at their home while she was 3 years old when she was playing with another one of her brothers in the shallow end of the pool. Nobody was held responsible for the toddler's death because it was the 70s, even though now their asses would be going to jail because why don't you have a gate around your pool? Why are you letting your toddlers play unattended in the water? Whatever. Mary Kay claimed that the incident caused a rift between her and her mother, and she said her parents tasked her with minding her brothers after that, and her mother became cold to her afterwards. Mary Kay Letourneau, everything she says, I think you can take with a grain of salt, because she creates a narrative where she has never had a negative thought in her life. Anything she's ever done that was wrong, I don't know, she just had no idea it was wrong at the time. And if she knew it was wrong, she wouldn't have done it. She just didn't know it was wrong. So anyway, I fucking hate her, and I'm glad she's dead.
Oh, she dead?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. She studied education at Arizona State University, Forkum Devils!
Forkum Devils!
Where she met her first husband, Steve Letourneau. Essentially, they meet...
That's like how when I found out, that's like when I found out that James Dobson went to USC, which is where both my parents went, and I was like, fight on, James Dobson. No, don't fight on James Dobson. Rot in hell, James Dobson.
Basically, Mary Kay finds out that she's pregnant, and this leads to complications where she's pregnant, and then she has class one day, and she has to get rushed to the emergency room, and she finds out that she had been carrying twins, but then she lost one of the twins, and she gave birth to the remaining twin, and that's their first kid. So just overall, like, incredibly traumatic thing to happen to you. And yeah, like that is like goes to ASU, meets a guy, gets knocked up. It's very clear that they do not have a good relationship. She states throughout her life that she was never in love with Steve, but she married him because her parents told her to, because he had gotten her pregnant. Steve also did not appear to have romantic feelings for Mary Kay, but was pressured by his parents to marry her. They both drop out of ASU after their baby is born, and there's the, you know, trauma of the twin dying and then having to give birth to the other one. In general, their marriage was really bad. They struggled a lot financially. Both of them had extramarital affairs. There are accounts of other people alleging that Steve was emotionally and physically abusive to Mary Kay. She was sent to the hospital at least twice for treatment after experiences of physical abuse. Police were called to their home multiple times, but no charges were ever filed. So this is not me trying to create a context in which we're like, aw, poor Mary Kay Letourneau, but trying to create a context where, like, the dynamic that she is experiencing interpersonally is characterized this way, and she is going to seek out interpersonal relationships that are probably one where she has power, as the marriage that she has offers her probably very little power.
I also think we do this with every man who has ever committed a crime.
Yes.
Where we go, well, XYZ serial killer was beaten by his dad and pissed on by his mom for his whole life, so then he started skinning little boys, and it's like, well...
Yeah. Sucks. But you know what?
Maybe don't... Can I say, maybe don't beat and piss on your kids, and maybe we would have less serial killers.
Well, and also people fucking get beaten, pissed on by their parents, and they don't become serial killers. So
yes,
don't be a serial killer.
Don't be a serial killer, and don't beat and piss on your kids. Please don't piss on your kids.
Yes.
Don't piss on your kids.
We're really hammering in this point about pissing on children.
I don't know why that's... Honestly, can I tell you? It's because there's so much piss humor in That's My Boy.
God.
They pee so much in that movie, and I don't know why.
Because it's funny. Ha ha ha.
I don't think it's funny. Can I say, I don't think fart jokes are funny.
Oh.
Everybody farts. It's just a fucking fart. It's a thing that a body does. I also don't get, like, ew in public if someone farts. I'm like, you guys are, like, it's a bodily... Anyway, that's my hot take, because I don't find it funny, because I don't find it shocking, because it's just a fucking fart.
That's the IBS talking.
It is!
So Steve and Mary Kay moved to Anchorage, Alaska, where Steve was a baggage handler for Alaska Airlines. After a year, he gets transferred to Seattle, and Mary has their second child. Some people call her Mary, some people call her Mary Kay. I might just switch between. I have her as Mary in most of my notes, but I'm not fucking it up if I call her Mary versus Mary Kay, okay?
Also, she abused a child. I don't think we need to 100% get her name right.
Yeah. Letourneau enrolls in Seattle University and gets a teaching degree in 1989, and she begins teaching second grade at Shorewood Elementary School in the Seattle suburb Burien. I think it's Burien. That's the one thing I didn't look up. Burien.
Burien.
Okay. Her public image was good. She was considered to be a good teacher, and she was highly praised by the parents of her students. In 1991...
What? Do you have a feeling about her being highly praised by the teacher of her students, Aubrey? You had a pregnant pause after that one.
I think that wolves in sheep's clothing, right?
Yeah,
It's always the person who you least expect, but then that's the person who you probably should most expect, apparently.
Who's the serial killer? Who's the clown?
John Gacy. John Wayne Gacy.
John Wayne Gacy. Yeah, like it's a community family man with the wife who does the clowning at the kids' birthday parties.
Yeah. So in 1991, Letourneau teaches a child named Vili Falau, who is of Samoan descent. He's in her 2nd grade class. Important to point out that Falau is a year and a half older than her oldest son.
See, now I'm really going to be thinking about Aaron Taylor Johnson. Continue.
Yeah. Letourneau described her view of Falau at the time as, I'm going to make Mackenna read it.
No. This whole series feels like payback for me making Aubrey watch The Ugly Truth. I feel like I'm being tortured.
So this was her quote about how she felt about her future husband when she taught him in 2nd grade.
Have you listened to interviews with her?
Yes, she does have kind of a distinctive speech pattern, but...
I'm going to listen to her talk really fast. Because otherwise I'm going to say something, I'm going to do it in a voice that's maybe going to be offensive.
You can look up like Barbara Walters' interview that she did with her.
Of course Barbara's at the scene of this crime.
It always is. It's either her or Nancy Grace.
It's gonna lean country because all of my voices do, but I also think I'm fucking nailing it.
You are, actually.
Thank you. There was a respect, an insight, a spirit, an understanding between us that grew over time. It was the kind of feeling you have with a brother or sister, a feeling that they're part of your life forever.
She's describing her experience meeting an 8-year-old.
An 8-year-old! And, like, here's the thing. I have had students who... Context, Mackenna, time and context. I have taught dance to children for a very long time. I started teaching in college. So, coming up on 10 years now, I have taught literally all ages of children. I have taught, like, little tiny babies, toddlers, little kids, middle schoolers, high schoolers, and college students. So, I've taught all level of children. Have had, may I say, kids that I like more than the others, because you do as a teacher have students that you like more than the others. I have never ever been attracted to one of my students because those are little tiny babies. Even the ones who are not literally little tiny babies, those are little tiny babies who I am in charge of, who I am an adult figure towards. There are people who I would describe as, like, reminding me of my little brother, or, like, I specifically had some queer students last year at the, like, summer theater I worked at, who I was like, oh my God, I see so much of myself at this age, and, like, I really cared about them, and, like, we've had some contact after I left because I, like, wanted to make sure that they were okay. A lot of them were queer students growing up in homes that were a little bit phobic, and so I can understand the feeling that she is describing here to a much less extreme degree, but she had sex with this boy.
Her narrative, we'll get into this with the timeline, but essentially her narrative that she describes is that she began to teach him when he was in 2nd grade, and she felt a strong connection to him, and she felt like, oh, I thought maybe one day he would marry my daughter. Like, I just felt like he was just going to be part of my life, and it isn't until he is in 6th grade that her feelings for him turn. So
I also, like, this is like literally the thing that is described. I'm so sorry for what I'm about to say. This is literally the thing that is described as, like, the imprinting process in the Twilight books.
Yeah.
Like, that is literally what Stephenie Meyer wrote as, like, what the werewolves do on somebody. And in those books, she's like, it doesn't have to turn sexual, but it often does. And it's like, Stephenie Meyer, you needed therapy.
That's the Mormon coming out, because that's Mormon shit right there. So she teaches Vili while he's in 2nd grade, and he is no longer her student. And in the subsequent years, she basically, while she is teaching him, she notices that he's really into art, and he is very gifted at art. So after she is no longer his teacher, she continues to try to cultivate his artistic abilities, so she bought him art supplies, took him to museums, encouraged him to start writing poetry. And that's basically what their relationship is like until the fall of 1995, when Letourneau goes from being a 2nd grade teacher to being reassigned to a 6th grade teacher. She's now Vili's 6th grade teacher.
I also think it's specific here. Sorry, I just looked up the racial and ethnic composition of Burien, and What year was this happening in?
The mid-90s.
Okay, so this is a little bit after that, so because I can only find data for the 2000 census, but it was 1.11%
Yeah.
Pacific Islander at the time, and so I'd also imagine there was probably a little bit of like fetishization of this boy going on, because I'm sure there weren't a lot of other students in the class who looked like him.
Oh, absolutely. And she grew up in a predominantly like white household in Orange County, and
Yeah.
probably had not had very much exposure to people of color in general. And that's
Especially
also
someone
the
who is
weird like
Samoan.
right. Well, and like the weird racial element of it too, of like I don't even want to get into how I think she could also be like having a white supremacist dad and then
Yeah.
going on to do what she does.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's just
To a child of color, I don't know.
To a child of color who is like it just that element of this has always not been able to escape me, and I think obviously when we talk about the movies next week, is such an important part of May December to me. Charles Melton ate that up, truly
Amazing.
Amazing.
Charles Melton should have won an Oscar for that movie, and I'm not even kidding.
I'm not kidding either. But yeah, it's that's a part of it that I always kind of can't shake. And it really came up for me when I was just watching that interview clip of her, and I was like, oh yeah, this was like a Barbie blonde woman who did this.
Well, yeah, and that's part of the thing too. And we'll talk about this a little bit with Letourneau in general, but also with a lot of these cases that become popularized of statutory rape with female perpetrators against young men, especially in this like teacher setting. It's always like it becomes popular because it's typically women who are considered conventionally attractive.
I mean, there was the teacher at our high school. Nothing ever confirmed, no accusations ever made, and she was the one who like was obsessed with all of the boys who we went to high school with.
Weird behavior. So, in the fall of 1995, Letourneau is pregnant by her husband, Steve Letourneau, and in January suffers a miscarriage. Again, that's just like bringing in this context, right?
Is this miscarriage too?
I think she had multiple with her first husband, but this is at least her second one.
Okay, cool.
So
cool. Miscarriage? Super cool.
Sick. So just to like, have us in that context, right? So she's teaching Falau for the second time during this 6th grade year. She's pregnant. She loses the baby like halfway through the year. And it is during that summer. So that summer, she is 34 years old and a mother of 4. She has taught this child twice in his life, and he just finished 6th grade.
So he's 12.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. During the summer, he starts going over to her house to do schoolwork.
I'm 28. Mm-hmm. I'm 6 years younger than this woman was. And I see like the little like 19-year-old girls on the train going out. And I'm like, oh, look how cute they are. But never be like, look how cute they are. This is always just so, and it's the same way I feel about men who are like waiting for girls to like turn 18, who have like countdown clocks to female celebrities who are gonna turn 18. And it's just like, ugh.
Yeah. Basically, Letourneau says that it's during this time that she starts to fantasize about Falau, and she promised herself that she wouldn't let it happen before her divorce. However, she begins sexually abusing Falau weeks before his 13th birthday.
So also to say, we're also living in an era where there's all this like discourse about like being a pedophile versus an ephebophile versus whatever because of fucking Epstein and whatever. And it's like, this woman is a pedophile.
Yeah.
Because this is someone who is maybe pubescent, but has certainly not completed puberty.
Yeah. One thing that gets reported a lot is that Falau, when he is 12, this summer that this is occurring, before the sexual abuse begins, he apparently bet his friend $20 that he would have sex with Letourneau.
And like, he's a little boy.
Well, right.
Little boys say dumb bull. That's like that is literally the first scene of That's My Boy.
Well, that's why.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like that. It is the responsibility of the adult to like be like, nope. And also, frankly, to teach the kid why that's not okay to like talk about women that way.
Well, right. I mean, one of my good friends is a teacher. Shout out to my friend Emily. And
Shout out
I've
Emily one
asked
time.
and I've asked her before, like, oh, have you ever had kids who had crushes on you? And she's like, oh yeah, like there are kids who they hug me for a little too long, and like you have to you push them away. You push them away. My friend Emily is a
Yeah.
5th grade teacher, and when I told her about this case, she was violently ill.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never had a kid like that young who I feel like has like hugged me too long, but I've had like high school students who I've taught who have been like a little bit too. I had a teen assistant when I used to teach who was like a 16-year-old boy who I was like, this boy has a crush on me, and I've had some other like students who I'm like, okay, I'm an adult, I'm old. Go over there, stay over there. And it's like that's your job as an adult, is to go over there, stay over there.
So, on June 18th, 1996.
And also might I say, also sorry,
Yeah.
one last thing on this is like, I don't want to like you don't need to like shame the kid for having a crush. Like it is not shameful to have a crush.
But you as the adult are responsible for like not being a fucking pedophile.
Yeah, exactly. And that's 100% it. And it's like part of like teaching is like emotional social development, and like this is a part of it.
Yeah. So, they begin their sexual relationship in the summer of 1996. It is in this summer, on June 18th, 1996, that
I would personally specifically phrase this as she begins abusing him in that summer.
Yeah.
But I understand that maybe he doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is sexual abuse. And again, that's like my own coloring by the fact that most of the fucking articles that you read about this are like Mary Kay Letourneau's student lover.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so yeah, no, they did not.
That was the Barbara Walters clip was called like Mary Kay Letourneau could not stay away from her pupil. And the all the comments on it are like, I'll never understand why people say affair. It's not an affair. It's predation of a child. Pedophilia, not an affair. This was never an affair. This was sexual assault and an act of pederasty. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if this were a male, they wouldn't be doing an interview with him. Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, in the summer of 1996, she begins sexually abusing Falau, and on June 18th, 1996, police found Letourneau with Falau in a car parked at a marina. She was seen jumping into the front seat, while Falau pretended to be asleep in the back. She and Falau provided false names when they were asked for identification, and Falau lied about his age and said that he was 18 years old. He told the police that no touching had taken place. Letourneau said that she and her husband had gotten into an argument, and Falau, who she claimed was a family friend who had been staying with them that night, witnessed the argument and ran away upset. She said that she left to go find him. Falau failed to furnish a driver's license or any type of government-issued ID because he's 12, and the patrolman deduced that he was not an adult as claimed because he was 12, and he looked like he was 12 and not 18, and the police officer was like, you are not 18, come with me.
That was one of the striking things about watching That's My Boy in a lot of ways, is just how young this boy looks next to someone. And obviously they're not the real people, but I was like, that is a child. That is a full-on child who they are doing these scenes with.
Yeah, and I've seen that intro scene, and I'm just like, I actually don't even know if it was, like, ethical for you guys to film this. I actually think this was fucked up for you to even do. Yep. I think that everyone involved in this production might be kind of evil.
Yep.
So Letourneau and Falau were taken to the police station where Falau's mother was called. So Villy's mother says that Mrs. Letourneau is a well-known teacher of Villy's and that she has no issue with the two of them being together in public because that's what the police told her. They were basically like, hey, your son is here with this adult woman, like, what the fuck is going on? And Mrs. Falau is basically like, that's like his teacher and mentor. She's essentially like a family friend. She can be with him. And basically the police just drop it after that.
They found them, like, engaging in a sex act, right?
No. So basically the cop, so the car is parked at the marina, and the cop is like, there's people who might be having sex up there, and they were probably, like, making out or something. And so the cop pulls up, she jumps into the front seat, And he, the cop hasn't witnessed anything. The
Okay.
child claims that nothing happened.
Right.
They
Right.
take
Right.
the
Right.
child to the police station. The mom says, "This is my friend," essentially. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing. The police do not feel there is anything else to press on the matter. Later in life, Mrs. Falau, Villy's mom, she says that if the police had told her that Letourneau had lied about Villy's age and what occurred in the car, that she would not have allowed her son to go back to Letourneau.
Yeah, absolutely. The second they absolutely should have told her that. Like, if anything, they should have told her that her son lied to the police and said that he was 18.
Yeah. Well, Letourneau lied too. Letourneau said he was 18.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's like even if they're doing this whole like song and dance of like, listen, this is me taking like what the police did is worse than my worst faith version of this, because my worst faith version of this is being like, yeah, young man, you shouldn't lie to police officers. So they like it's so weird. It's so weird that they just gave her no information.
Yeah. So in September of 1996, so around 3 months after she begins sexually abusing Falau, Letourneau was pregnant with Falau's child.
That's so crazy.
In February of 1997, Steve Letourneau finds love letters that are written from his wife to Falau. So Mary Kay Letourneau was arrested in March of 1997 after a relative of her husband contacted the police. So September, October, November, December. Yeah. So
she was like 6 months pregnant when she gets arrested.
Essentially. So Letourneau pleads guilty to 2 counts of second-degree child rape.
Yeah.
Her first child with Falau was born on May 29th, 1997, while she was awaiting sentencing.
And while he was 13 American years old.
Yep. The state sought to sentence her to 7.5 years in prison. But through a plea agreement, her sentence was reduced to 6 months, 3 of which were suspended in the county jail, and 3 years of sex offender treatment. She was not legally required to register as a sex offender.
Wait, that's crazy. She was a teacher.
Yeah.
With a ton of access to children.
Yeah. She was initially not required. After some of the events we'll talk about, she does end up having to register as a sex offender.
Okay, thank God.
After her plea agreement, Letourneau could not contact Falau or her 5 children or have contact with any other minors. The story...
Okay. So she was not allowed to, like, continue being a teacher after this.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, good. I got really nervous that they were just like, let her go back to teaching.
Yeah, no, she was never allowed to teach. Throughout her entire life, anytime she's interviewed, she's like, I want to be a teacher again. I could be a teacher at a private school. And yeah.
That happened in the Arizona theater community where people found out that a guy, and like this wasn't even as bad as the situation we're talking about, but there was a guy who was teaching music at a bunch of different theaters in Arizona, and he in a previous state had been caught jorking it in public, and he changed his name and like lied on a background check in order to work at a school and work at a couple of youth theaters in the area. And it's like, hey man, I actually don't think that maybe you can't work around children forever just because you were jerking it in a car. But the fact that you like lied about it and did all this crazy shit in order to hide that fact is maybe extremely bad.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what actually makes me think that you should not be allowed to be around children.
Yeah.
Is all of the lying.
Yeah. Well, and it's a difficult thing, right? Because it's like, on one hand, if you are honest about it, you're never going to get to work with children either.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, this gets into my whole thing about like when we talk about someone being canceled, it's like, I often, me and Aubrey are both anti, we're both pretty like prison abolition-y people, and I generally am like, I don't think someone's life should be ruined forever because they do something wrong, but I do think that you maybe can't do certain things because of the wrong thing that you did, and like maybe if you've done a sex crime, you don't get to be around kids, like, and like that is like a thing that like is just maybe true.
Well, right. I mean, the way I feel about it is that, like, I don't think that mistakes that you've made in your life need to define the entire course of your life, and that you necessarily can't participate in society anymore, and you just need to be locked away in a box to rot forever. And also, like, actions have consequences.
Yeah.
And we also need to think about protecting people who are very vulnerable in society.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, so this story is a massive tabloid scandal. It is everywhere. There's, TV reports about it. It's all over the magazines. Like, people are really obsessed with this case. And so, Mary Kay Letourneau goes to county jail. And you're probably like, great, this is the end of this story. What a fucked up lady. So glad that, she got out of jail and then just, faded into obscurity and never had contact with her victim again. Just kidding! That's actually not what happened, because she fucking does it again. So, on February 3rd, 1998, 4 weeks after completing her jail sentence, Letourneau was found by police in a car with Falau near her home. Letourneau initially said she was alone in the car. He was there, so that didn't really work.
Yeah, there's no one else in the car with me. Don't mind the person in the back seat.
She's like, I didn't even know he was there. I didn't even see him.
I didn't know this person who I was convicted of abusing was sitting in my back seat. That would be crazy.
Again, she and Falau provided false names when they were asked for identification. So, although it was reported that sexual intercourse had occurred in the car, Falau told the detective that he and Letourneau had just kissed, and he also reported that he had touched Letourneau on the thigh, but he claimed that no sexual intercourse had occurred. There was evidence that the two met several times after Letourneau's release from jail. When she was arrested the second time, so after she got out of jail and was caught in the car with him, police found $6,200 in cash, which is about $12,000 in today's money. There was also baby clothes and her passport. There were also receipts for $850 in purchases, so about $1,700 in today's money, that had been made for men's, young men's, and infants' clothing. And Letourneau was basically like, me trying to flee with my victim? Never. I was using that money for dermatology treatment and my divorce lawyer, and those men's clothing receipts, gifts for relatives, and also gifts for me because I enjoy wearing oversized men's clothing. That was her lie. Her lie was that some of the men's clothing was for her because she enjoyed wearing oversized men's clothing.
And Billy is 14 American years old at this point?
Yeah, like probably still 13 maybe, or 14.
Awesome. I feel awesome right now. I feel really good.
Yeah. So in February 1998, the judge revoked Letourneau's prior plea agreement and reinstated the prison sentence of 7.5 years for violating her no contact order.
Yeah.
Let's see. In interviews and in the book that we'll be talking about in a minute, Letourneau is pretty explicit that she was fucking Falau, that she was sexually abusing Falau the entire time. Even though Falau was like, no, that wasn't happening. We were just being friendly. Nope, she was abusing him the entire time.
It's so weird that she's the one who's so on God about it.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about that is I feel like, I mean,
but then there's a weird back and forth because the police are like, we have no evidence that they had sex when we caught her the second time.
Well, that's the thing, is it's like...
So it's also like, was Letourneau just trying to be, like, upping her own image of being this, like, sexual being?
Yeah, maybe. It's like, or I think maybe she, like, was trying to take the tact of, like, I didn't do anything wrong. And, like, and she feels like if she just is like, I don't feel like I did anything wrong, and he doesn't feel like I did anything wrong, so why does anyone else care? That maybe it'll just, like, go away.
I mean, that's kind of how she doubles down later in life, is she's just like,
yeah,
we're in love.
Right, exactly. Like, that's what I imagine that could come from. But then he, because he's a, fucking kid, is, like, worried about getting in trouble. And, or, like, worried about, like, losing her, and is, like, having that, like, attachment issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so he is trying to, sort of guard this thing, not get in trouble. And she's like, no, the way we're gonna get away with this is by our love conquering all.
Yeah. So, let's see.
And that's a weird thing too, then thinking about it in the context of That's My Boy, because in That's My Boy, it's portrayed as so, like, a cool thing that happened. And it's like, okay, well, he didn't even feel that way about it. So why are you guys being like this about it?
Yeah. Yeah. So Letourneau serves out her sentence at the Washington Correction Center for Women. While serving her second stint in jail, Letourneau gives birth to her second daughter by Falau, because in this time where they are having sex after she is released from jail the first time, she is impregnated again while they are...
My God.
Yeah. So she gives birth to her second daughter in October of 1998.
And she now has 6 children.
Yes, she has 6, 4 with her first husband and 2
heaven.
with her victim.
Oh my God. And she's what, 35, 36?
At this point, yeah, she's about 36.
Oh my God.
So that year, Letourneau and Falau co-author a book which was published only in French called
Yeah, of course.
Only One Crime, Love. And I'm going to send you the French title so that you can
say
read it in French.
I'm sorry to our French listeners. The French. Why have you been harboring Roman Polanski for so long? Why are you guys so weird about this shit? Sorry to the French, but also, what the fuck, you guys? You're 2 for 2 on being wrong about this.
The French have, I think, many more than 2.
Yeah, they do. Listen, I'm trying to be nice to our French
listeners. They got
listeners.
a whole president who was groomed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot about Macron. I did during the finals this week, shout out to the Knicks in 5, yell "fuck you" to the French several times. Every time something bad happened with Victor Wembanyama, I was like, "Fuck the French." Yeah, anyway. So I was really on my French hate. Guys, I'm fluent in French.
Say the French title of the book.
Un seul crime, l'amour.
Only one crime, love. In 1999, a second book comes out.
Did you guys like that? Did you guys like the sound of me vomiting into my microphone?
Yeah.
Let me know if you want more.
Okay. So the second book is published in the United States, but it was basically written with only minimal cooperation from either Letourneau or Falau. It's called If Loving You Is Wrong, and that seems like that's just another kind of like cash grab for them because there's such a media circus around them and their case.
Just thinking about OJ's If I Did It.
Yeah, it literally... And it's not even if I did it. It's just, I did it and I don't feel bad about it. So during her imprisonment, Letourneau was allowed visits from her children, which, again, legal double standards, whatever. While she was in prison...
Well, Aubrey, she didn't abuse her kids, so she should be allowed to be around them.
And you know, it's so hard for me not to be like, maybe we should have just killed her, but it's okay.
That's the thing. Aubrey is anti-prison, but bro just killing more people.
Yes, it's true. It's true. I'm a prison abolitionist, but I do think maybe we should just create a gun that vaporizes people.
Aubrey is pro extrajudicial killing.
But only if I get to decide.
We get to vote every year. This is my pitch for instead of the purge. Every year we get to vote by committee one person to kill. Not everyone gets a vote.
Oh no.
It's by committee.
Okay. How many
it's
committees
my whole thing
are
about
there?
how I don't know. I think we pick like 100 people who are like representative of the population.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's the committee.
Watch everybody just be like, we all want to kill this dude in Denver named Dan.
Well, that's my other thing.
Dan and Dan. Like I would be there and I would be stating my case of how we should kill the guy who cut me off in traffic 3 years ago, and everybody's like, okay, maybe.
This is like my thing where I think that because we killed all the buffalo should get to kill one of us every year, and everyone in the United States is entered into a lottery, and then a random name is drawn every year, and that person gets trampled by the buffalo.
Just like the short story, The Lottery.
Yeah, except for it's the buffalo.
Great. I like it. I'll produce it. We stage it.
Thanks, buddy. Sorry, guys, this is such a bleak one. I have to be making jokes. I have to be Henry Zabrowskiing it up on this podcast right now.
Letourneau, unsurprisingly, unpopular with the prison inmates.
Yeah.
Apparently she sassed guards, she balked at work, she was apparently punished by spending 18 of her first 24 months in solitary confinement.
That's not going to do good for her already insane brain.
Well, yeah. In one instance, she had to spend 6 months in solitary when letters she tried to send to Falau were intercepted because she cannot stop. Like, I mean, that's the thing. She can. She can stop. She chooses not to stop repeatedly.
Well, it's like, that's what I mean by, like, it's like I said insane brain in jest, but, like, something is wrong with this woman at this point.
Sexually obsessed.
Literally, it's like this is addict behavior. Like, this is addict behavior. This is like, I don't need to stop drinking. Nothing's wrong with me. I don't need to stop having sex with this kid. Nothing's wrong with our relationship. It's like the weird, like, justifying the behavior. I mean, Aubrey, I'm sure that you can speak this about people who have eating disorders, because eating disorders have a lot of the same tropes as addictions. You get addicted to the feeling, especially with bulimia patients. You get addicted to the feeling of throwing up, right?
Well, right. You have a physiological response to vomiting. Like, your body, when you have purged for a really long time, your body starts to just, like, start to purge when you eat.
Exactly. And so it's like, that's like, this almost to me sounds like some sort of weird, I mean, there's literally a whole TV show about this, My Strange Addiction. Like, to me, like, I'd be so interested to, like, look at her brain, because I would be interested to see if, like, there's something going on with, like her hypothalamus and stuff like that. That's like, I mean, like, and again, none of this is to justify the behavior, but, like, she is behaving like an addict in a way that, like, I think we do often see with, like, people who are serial killers, because, like,
well, she has a victim who she's able to just continue victimizing time and time again. I mean, it is like, this was not the point of the book Lolita, but it really is, like, I feel like her relationship to him is so much like the protagonist of Lolita and the projection onto Dolores, where it's just like,
absolutely,
holy shit, like, this is like a kid who you have, like, projected this like epic love story onto.
Wow, Aubrey, that is a great comp, and I would actually be so interested in doing a similar thing that we're doing here with, like, the book Lolita, and then, like, the movie adaptations of Lolita.
Well, and there's a real life story that Lolita is based on. I read a book about it.
Yeah, that's because that is totally, like, she is just, I mean, she is textbook definitionally Delulu. Mm-hmm. But, like, then to talk in more, like, it's like there must just be some sort of, like, weird dopamine shit going on. Like, she's getting, like, basically, like, high off of this in some way. And I'm sure high off of the attention, too, at this point.
Well, I think it's a power thing. A lot of sex crimes are about power. And I think totally. When you take somebody who had a very conservative upbringing, who was essentially funneled into an abusive marriage, this is finally a relationship where she has a modicum of power. And without it, who is she?
I'd be so interested. This is such a dark thought. I'd be so interested in what had happened if she had, like, fully lost access to him via him, like, dying or something. Mm-hmm. Or, like, you know, his family, like, actually, like, getting him far enough away from her that she could not access him.
I think she would have probably tried everything in her might to access him if he was still alive. And if he was dead, I mean, I don't know. I think she probably would have found another victim eventually.
Like, reoffended. Yeah, totally.
I mean, truthfully.
Yeah.
In 1999, she finally divorces her husband, Steve, while she's in prison, and Steve gets custody of the 4 children who they share together. I've kind of tried purposefully not to center Vili Falau too much in this story, just because he is still alive, and he has not made a public statement about their relationship since her passing, other than the joint statement that their families made to announce her death. So I really don't want to project too much onto what he thinks or feels about this relationship. So again, just kind of sticking to the facts of the aftermath in this case. So while Letourneau is in prison, Vili Falau drops out of high school, and his mother is granted sole custody of the 2 children that he shares with Letourneau. He struggles with suicidal depression and alcoholism, and he attempts suicide in March of 1999. He survives. In 2002, Falau's family sued the Highline School District and the city of Des Moines, Washington for emotional suffering, lost wages, and the cost of rearing his 2 children, claiming that the school and the police department had failed to protect Falau from Letourneau.
Yeah.
Following a 10-week trial, no damages were awarded. One notable thing is that an attorney named Anne Bremner represented the police department, and Anne Bremner becomes friends with Mary Kay Letourneau in 2002. I think probably while this trial is happening, they like get into contact and they just strike up a kind of relationship with each other. And she is very pro Letourneau. She makes a lot of weird statements about how she considers Letourneau's relationship with Falau to be eternal and endless, and says...
Who is this person? Sorry, repeat who this person
She's
is?
the attorney who represents the police department in the civil suit that the Falau family does against the police department. So she, strikes up a friendship with Letourneau and is basically like, nothing could have kept the two of them apart, and makes weird public statement. She gets brought up a lot in interviews because she just yapped a lot in the early 2000s about how she thought their love was just so magnetic.
Oh, that's like the guy in the OJ case who wouldn't shut the fuck up too. What the hell's his name?
Blonde
Cargo?
guy.
Crimis, whatever the hell his name is.
Yeah. Mary Kay Letourneau is released from prison to a community placement program on August 4th, 2004, and she registered the following day with the King County Sheriff's Office as a lifetime level 2 medium risk sex offender. So following...
Medium risk?
Yeah.
They're like, well, she's only abused the one, so it's okay.
Yeah. They're like... As long as Billy Falau is alive.
As long as it's only the one boy.
Medium. Right? What do you have to do to be high risk? Holy fuck.
Lots of boys. You gotta be a risk to a lot of boys.
So at this point, when she is released, Falau is 21 years old. So following Mary Kay Letourneau's release, Falau persuades the court to reverse the no contact order against her so that he can legally contact her. They do. And Letourneau and Falau get married on May 20th, 2005 in the city of Woodinville, Washington, in a ceremony. Exclusive access to the wedding was given to Entertainment Tonight, and photographs were released through other media outlets. No
fucking way.
Do you want to know how much they sold the rights for their wedding video for?
I'm gonna shit my brains out. How much?
Just make a ballpark.
$100,000.
$750,000. Mackenna's pacing around their room. All right, just screaming into the pillow. Just screaming and screaming.
Was that audible?
It was not audible, but I did. That one was.
It actually felt good to do it twice. I needed two of them. I needed one for that's my boy and one for that information.
So again, I cannot stress how much of a fucking media circus this case is. Where basically, while the trials are happening, it's huge in the news, right? And then when she gets released and reoffends, huge in the news. And then when she comes out and they get married, everybody just fucking shits themselves. So in the early 2000s, there's this big, renewed media circus around them. And so Letourneau, after they get married, she's doing these interviews with Entertainment Tonight and these other entities, and she's like, I'm planning on having another baby and I'm gonna return to teaching. By law, I'm permitted to teach at private schools and community colleges. Thankfully, none of that happened. She did not have another child with Falau, and she did not become a teacher ever again.
There's this triangle of evil. That's her, Jodi Arias, and Casey Anthony. And I don't just mean that they are a triangle of evil. I mean, they are. They all did evil things. But they're the thing that unites all of their triangle of evil is how weird the media was about those three women specifically too.
Because they're beautiful. They're beautiful. And that's why.
I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to live in this planet anymore. I'm good.
I mean, that's why fucking Casey Anthony is trying to brand herself as a girl boss now.
I want to get Casey Anthony squarely in her vagina.
Casey Anthony is trying to, position herself as an Amanda Knox type. And it's you're not, because you killed your child.
You killed your daughter and got away with it because the police didn't know what Mozilla Firefox was. You absolute insane woman. Aubrey, you may continue. I will zen out. I'll zen out.
Yeah, so now I'm just gonna read some of the choice quotes she,
Okay, Aubrey, actually, really fast, we gotta do some cleansing breaths then. All right, ready?
Okay.
Everyone together. Bit one, we're gonna breathe in for 5, hold it for 5, breathe out for 5, hold it for 5. Breathe in for 5. Hold it for 5. Breathe out for 5. Leave it out for 5. Okay, if you need to repeat that a few more times before Aubrey does this, go ahead. I'm ready.
In a 2006 interview with NBC News, Letourneau conceded she knew it would be wrong to let the relationship go any further, but she said as soon as the school year ended, she and Billy did cross that line. She said it did not cross her mind at the time that having sex with Falau would be a crime. In a later interview, she said, if someone had told me, if anyone had told me, there is a specific law that says this is a crime, I did not know. I've said this over and over. Had I known, if anyone knows my personality, just the idea this would count as a crime.
I'm sorry. You have a teaching license. You're a mandated reporter as a public school teacher. You are. You're a mandated reporter. Maybe you weren't in the 90s. I don't know when mandated reporting happening. But I would put money on it that she as a teacher received a training about noticing abuse in children.
But did it say specifically you can't have sex with them yourself? Did they say they say specifically that there is a law that says you cannot have sex with your student? They didn't point out that was specifically a law. It was implied, but it was not specific enough.
I think if you have the information that it's illegal to have sex with a child, the inference that it is illegal for you to have sex with a child seems pretty goddamn obvious.
So, in 2015, they do an interview with Barbara Walters that covers the case, and there's one, the thing with fucking Letourneau is that she's just always gonna yap. She's gonna yap over Falau the entire time, and he is gonna sit there, and you are going to wonder what is going on in his head, always. And there's really just one kind of little soundbite from him that I pasted in the chat that I'm gonna have Mackenna read, and I just think that it kind of sums up where his head is at.
It was a huge change in my life for sure. I don't feel like I had the right support or the right help behind me from my family, from anyone in general. I mean, my friends couldn't help me because they had no idea what it was like to be a parent. I mean, because we were all 14, 15.
He was unsupported, alone, and had 2 children before he was 16.
Yeah, and I'm sure he probably felt like that this woman was the only person who had supported him through his entire life.
Yeah, and I mean, based on the interviews and the Dr. Oz, appearances and shit like that, he claims to have great love for her when they are together. So, on May 9th, 2017, after 12 years of marriage, Falau files for separation from Letourneau, but then he withdraws that filing. So, basically, what does their adult life look like? So, Falau works at a home improvement store and also is a professional DJ, and Letourneau is a legal assistant. There is a source in an article about their relationship in the late 2000s where somebody says they know what everyone thinks about their relationship, and they don't care. They really never have. The wrong stuff that happened was so long ago. They are 2 grown adults who are living their lives now. And I don't know. That's the thing, right? Is that it's like when they were together after he was an adult, a lot of people just kind of brushed it off as like, well, he can consent now, and he is. So I guess maybe it was never really wrong, which is so weird.
As a secret second option, that I feel feels more likely, perhaps he was sexually abused as a child at such a young age, and his first real romantic relationship was an abusive one, and therefore that's how he learned what a relationship was supposed to be and got caught in that cycle, as we see with victims over and over and over again.
They finalized their legal separation in 2019. Falau, at least in a lot of these 2000s People magazine articles and shit that I was reading, he says explicitly he doesn't view himself as a victim. He says he's unashamed of the relationship. However, a People magazine article in 2020, after Letourneau's death, claims that a source close to Falau says that he sees things clearly now and he realizes that this wasn't a healthy relationship from the start. Letourneau dies in 2020 at her home in Washington. She dies of cancer. Okay. So Letourneau dies.
She had colorectal cancer, but Aubrey can't say colorectal and I can, so I'm saying it instead.
Okay.
Hey, there are words I can't say either.
Yeah. So when Letourneau dies, Falau and their children and her family are present. A joint statement is made afterward by the Falau and Letourneau families to commemorate her death. In her will, Letourneau left much of her estate to Falau. Essentially, what I gathered from what their relationship was like is they separate in 2019. Her cancer, she develops cancer and it seems to progress much quicker than they anticipate. She and Falau, despite getting divorced, like, they maintain contact up until she dies, and he is at her side when she dies. So there's no, big blow up. Like, they raise their children together, right? So they're still interacting and being amicable together.
I think the thing that, like, I saw in reading a lot of comments on that video that I was watching, people noting over and over again that his eyes really seem to light up only when he's talking about the kids.
Yeah, he loves his children.
And he loves his children. And so it's not shocking to me that he would have filed for separation. Again, and this is all speculation, but, like, not shocking me that he would file for separation around 2017. His daughters would both be adults at that point. It would be like 18 and 19 or like 19 and 20, something like that. And, so the kids would be out of the house, and I'm sure, like, then it's like, oh shit, like, that part of this is done. And, like, if the kids are the thing that he really loved, he's like, okay, maybe it's time to move on with my life. I'd also imagine as they got to be older and got to be closer to his age where all of this happened, he might start to have some types of feelings about it. As he gets out of his 20s, he started to have some types of feelings about it. When things start to happen, his daughters start having, interactions with romantic interactions, sexual interactions, and that might have changed things for him. Like, there's so many things that happen as a parent that, like, me speaking like I have kids, but there's just so many things that happen as a parent where it's like you then start to, like, kind of reflect on your own life, and and so, like, I can imagine that, like, as these life changes are happening for his daughters, he might be reflecting on his own life a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's also the perspective that May December takes, is really looking through the lens of him as a father. And I say him, May December is pretty clearly about Falau and Letourneau, but it's not like a biopic. We'll get into it more next week. Falau actually said that he was sort of offended that he was not asked to consult or participate in anything related to May December, and I think those are very valid feelings that he's entitled to have, that I think are made even more interesting by the fact that the film is, like, partially about that exactly.
Yeah. I think what's interesting too to think about in regards to like them still being friendly at the end of his life, like, even if he had, like, realized what happened was wrong and, like, come to terms with what the relationship was or whatever, that he was abused, like, I think there is something to, like, wanting to I mean, that's such an unstable, crazy environment for those two girls to grow up in, where their parents are this couple. I mean, that gets touched on in That's My Boy, that, like, Andy Samberg hides the fact that, like, his parents are this couple, and it's like, I can imagine that that's, like, would be a really distressing environment for two young girls. And so it's like trying to, like, create as much stability as you can in those two young people's life, I'm sure was very important to definitely him, probably also her as parents, of just, like, we have to, like, have stability in these children's life.
Yeah. I want to talk briefly about other media that's inspired by this case, and then sort of softly launch the topic for next week. So there is...
As if we haven't previewed it 94 times throughout the episode already.
There is a song called Mary Kay that includes lyrics like, "You can't stop when love's around. You can't close your lonely eyes. Though he's way too young to drive, he's old enough to please you."
Who wrote that song?
Jill Sobel.
Okay.
It's
should be in prison.
It's supposed to be, like, joking, but it also is, like, very sympathetic to her. So I'm like, I don't understand you.
Bad.
There's a TV movie in 2000 on the USA Network called All American Girl, the Mary Kay Letourneau story.
Ew, what the fuck?
Well, I think that's also part of what inspired May December.
Ew.
There's also a book called Notes on a Scandal by Zoe Heller that's released in 2003 that was inspired by the case. There's an adaptation of it with Judi Dench and Cate Blanchett from 2006. I almost wanted us to watch it for this, but I don't think I will, because that that movie is basically like, what if Mary Kay Letourneau had a teacher colleague who like knew what was going on, and there was like a dance between these two women, and that's just not. I'm really more interested in exploring the narrative of how do two pieces of media take a look at male victims of sexual abuse in different ways. And I think that movie is just a little bit more of like, it's a different lens on that story.
I have heard good things about Notes on a Scandal, so if I have time this week, I'll watch it too. We don't need to talk about it at any length, but I have heard good things about
it has good reviews, and I mean, great cast.
Philip Glass did the score.
Oh. So yeah, that is really all I have for the notes on today. It's a little bit of a true crime one today, and I think the main thing that I just really wanted to, like, clarify were, what are the facts of this case? Like, this is not a case of someone's, like, love affair. It gets called an affair a lot. It gets, like, the ways that people talk about this when you see articles from the 90s and 2000s are like, it is just a scandal, an affair, like the love, the push and the pull, like there's just so much drama to it. And when you actually boil it down to what it is a case of child sexual abuse. And I don't think that we would have this story if it was a gender swapped story. I mean, there are plenty of stories of young women being sexually abused by male teachers, yet they don't become media circuses. I mean, there was a teacher, not at the high school we went to, but the first high school I went to, where this teacher was married to a woman who he had taught in high school and who he married after she graduated. And it's like that, it's like, that was just normal. That was just normal.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I would say, is unfortunately that is just seen as more normal, which is icky in its own different way. I think the other thing to talk about here is, like, I do think that this mirrors in a lot of ways, a lot of times that we'll see with, like, there is totally the thing about, like, male victims not wanting to come forward because of, like, especially when they're abused by other men because they're afraid of being seen as, like, gay or whatever. But I think that you also see this a lot with, like, male victims who are abused by male mentor figures, where they're like, no, he actually loved me, he actually cared about me, whatever. Like,
I think we see that with Sandusky.
Yeah, and I think that, like, the thing that you often see with victims in those cases, is they get really, really offended when they find, like, the thing that often, like, breaks them out of it is when they find out there were other victims, and they are like, oh, like, I wasn't special. But, like, even some of them will still, like, end up, like, circus monkeying themselves into believing, well, it was different with me, like, he may have been abusing those other boys, but he wasn't abusing me. And I do think that, like, we see a lot of this with all victims of all genders, but I do think especially with men, of, like, sort of like, I'm not a victim, they just actually cared about me. And, like, oftentimes for young boys, it's maybe the first, like, emotionally vulnerable relationship they experience, regardless of if it's I think that's why, like, young boys often get preyed on, because they tend to be more emotionally vulnerable, because they don't have any, like, close emotional bonds in their lives, because of the way we talk a lot about male socialization on this podcast. And I think that, like, the fact that, like, young boys don't have a lot of, like, emotional relationships with their peers or with adults in their life can lead to some of this, because then when someone does approach them with any sort of, like, emotional, at least seemingly emotional vulnerability, and caring about them as, like, a person and their thoughts and their feelings and their development, they're more likely to, like, fall prey to that person, because they're like, well, this person actually cares about me and no one in my life cares about me. And I think that we see that in, like, Falau's quote a little bit, that, like, no one gave a shit about him and was supporting him, and, like, what he really needed was, like, help and love and affection. And he was, from his perspective, getting that from her.
Well, right. And, like, children who are victimized by teachers, especially, right, like, tend to be children who are vulnerable in some way. Like, children who are victimized generally with, like, sex crimes, it's children who have, like, depression, low self-esteem, low socioeconomic status, marginalized identities, and it's because they are usually isolated from peers or other people. And I think that they're it's not a coincidence that Falau is Samoan and in a predominantly white area and probably was isolated by many of his peers, which primed him for grooming by an adult.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And like, I don't know, especially for young boys, we need to like do a better job of dismantling some of these like, yeah, toughen up, young man, just be tough and like don't have feelings and don't have emotions, so that they are not emotionally vulnerable to people who then actually take an interest in them. And that is not to blame the kids. This is to blame like the societal thing of like, we need to do better by our young men by like teaching them better emotional connectivity skills so that they are able to form more of those bonds in their life and be less susceptible to someone who is malintentioned.
Right. And I don't know, I just think there's something so fucked up about the psychology of like being a teacher, especially, and like
Yeah.
perpetrating something like this where it.
I mean, they tell you all the time when you do any sort of training as a teacher, and I'm sure, Aubrey, you've had to do these, that it's like most sexual abuse of children happens by someone who the child knows and trusts.
Well, right. And it's just like, when you are teaching children, right? Like, you do form like these kind of interesting relationships with them where
Yeah.
you're friendly with them, you chat to them, you are not their friend, right? Like, there's
Right.
never a reason for you to go over to a teacher's house. I mean, I remember when I was the first school that I went to. So I grew up in a town south of Tucson, and I had freshman and sophomore year there. And then we moved basically the summer before my junior year. And I remember there had been a theater teacher who I really liked a lot. And, she was like a wonderful woman, like in her 30s. And she had been the director of the plays my freshman and sophomore year. And like before I moved, she took me to lunch one day. And it's like, it's one of those things where, and I am not in any way suggesting that this was inappropriate conduct. I do not think it was at all. But looking through it now as the lens of an adult, even though that was like well intentioned and it was really nice of her to do that, I actually think that was probably inappropriate to do.
Yeah. I mean, totally. And it's just like, and I think that that's a difference between like high school and college, and like there's so many things that just like you have to figure out what those boundaries are as a teacher.
And I want to say I'm not saying I think that was inappropriate necessarily because of her or her relationship, but for me at 15 to have a teacher who I trusted, who I then met outside of school, even though like that was a good relationship with that teacher, she did then create a precedent where what if I had a teacher later who wanted to do something like that, and that had
Right.
already been normalized for me. And that's part of why it's like you just can't make exceptions like that,
Yeah, totally. No, 100%. And I think that that's just like definitely true. And teaching is so hard because kids also get really comfortable with you, and like that's kind of why the mandated reporter thing can be so hard sometimes, because the kid will confide something in you and then you have to report it, and it's
Yeah.
like, fuck, this kid's gonna be so mad at me for telling someone, but it's like you're ultimately doing a thing that's probably in their best interest. Not all the time, but most of the time.
Well, I just don't think you can have like mutual consent ever,
Right.
right? Like there's in
Right.
that kind of like if we think about things in terms of a hierarchy, you can't consent to having sex with someone who's above you in that hierarchy. Again,
Absolutely.
and even at the college level, right? Like that's where I'm like, if you are teaching somebody who is 22 and you're 32, even if you would have normally met that person at a bar and had a consensual sexual relationship, if they are your student in your class, that's not really an environment where mutual consent can truly occur.
Totally. And just gets everyone into like really bad, it puts everyone into a really bad sticky situation. And I think that you just have to like, I don't know, all of this shit too about like, when love comes, you just have to, it's like, no, you don't. Like, you're still a logical, rational actor.
Yes.
And you just need to keep your fucking pants on. Because honestly, if I was having that feeling about a child, I would go, something is wrong with me and I need to deal with like this thing that is wrong with me. Like
Well,
that
you'd
is
separate yourself from the child.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Like my impulse will be like, oh no, like this is that's her whole thing of like, no one told me there wasn't a law. Yeah, they did.
Of course they did.
Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that. It's like the whole thing. It's the whole joke about like jailbait and shit like that. Like that is a known thing by everyone, that you're not allowed to have sex with a child.
Yeah.
But you see this with pedophile. I mean, that's the whole point of like why like NAMBLA exists, which is, for people who don't know, NAMBLA is the National Association of like Man Boy Love or something like that. Yeah. And it's just like a bunch of guys who are like, it's fine to be a pedophile. And it's like, no, it's not. It's actually not fine to be a pedophile. It's super not. And so, yeah, I just, these ones always really get me, which makes sense because I'm a normal person who thinks that abusing children is bad. Which is not the tact of a movie we're going to talk about next week.
Great.
So see you next week for that, guys. We're going to talk about a movie that does think that abusing boys is bad, and one that, let me tell you, does not.
Actually, isn't it so funny when who plays the perpetrator in that?
Well, there's two actors because we see her young and we see her older.
Well, it's her daughter is the younger version.
Is it really?
Is it Susan Sarandon?
It sure is, baby.
It's Susan Sarandon, and then at the beginning, it's young Susan. Not yet. At the beginning, it's Susan Sarandon's daughter who is playing young Susan Sarandon, who is sexually assaulting a child.
Thank God that movie was a mother-daughter affair.
And it's all played for laughs because, quite literally, the endings of the intro is them getting caught at a like school assembly, and then everybody cheers.
Yeah.
No!
Yeah!
No!
Have a question or a topic that you would like for us to discuss? Send us an email at informedattraction@gmail.com.